AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio.
Let's ride!
Hour 2, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us, AFR. Presented by Relief Windows. I'm Matt.
You're a loser, Matt!
Hey, shut up, kid. Paul O'Neill.
They're chanting Paul O'Neill's name.
Music. And Mr. Toby Tom Blake. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. We'll talk to Ross Jackson in about 15 minutes from right now, 1 hour from right now. E.J. Kuiper, who's the president and CEO of the FMOL, Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady Health System, along with Ryan Cross from OLOL and FMOL. They'll be in studio with us. I want to talk a little bit about the LSU Arena project and also some really cool NIL stuff that Our Lady of the Lake is doing. So we'll talk about that coming up in 1 hour from right now with those guys in our studio. LSU had practice on Saturday in fall camp. They're back on the practice field Monday, but in between the two, LSU landed another massive commitment for the class of 2026, and this one was probably a bit of a surprise. Deuce Geralds, the top 100 defensive lineman out of the state of Georgia, picked LSU over Oregon, Ole Miss, Michigan, and Ohio State also had hats on the table. But when we talked to Shea Dixon early last week, the feeling was in the industry that Geralds was leaning towards Oregon. Well, I got a call late last week, a Thursday morning, and it was pretty apparent that the feeling around LSU was that they were about to get a double dose of good news on the recruiting trail. Darius McKinley was the first obvious one, and that happened. But that wasn't a great surprise. Darius McKinley was thought to be a heavy lean toward LSU. His brother's on the team. He's from Acadiana, all that sort of stuff. Geralds was surprising. Now, there's three things that have to line up to land a player like Deuce Geralds. I'm going to get to those in just a second, like the tripod of things that had to align for this to happen. I'm going to get to that in a second. But if you're not familiar, let me give you the bio real quick on Geralds. So he's out of Georgia, 6'1", 268. He is a high four-star. In the consensus, in the composite, he is the number 93 player in the country, the 8th best defensive lineman. ESPN ranks him the 40th overall player and the 2nd best defensive lineman in the country. And I can hear you saying, Matt, you always say I don't care about the roster, the rating, or the ranking. I care more about who has the offers. That's what people always say. That they say about me.
That's exactly what they say about you. That you don't care about the star rating, you care about the offer list.
Glad you brought that up, Muse. So let's go through the offer list. You might want to sit down and take a breath because it's going to take me a second to get through it. LSU, Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss, Alabama, Michigan, Oklahoma, North Carolina, Miami, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Southern Cal, Georgia, Clemson, Florida, Vandy, NC State, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, Texas, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Florida State, Penn State, South Carolina, Arkansas, Indiana, Louisville, Kentucky, Kansas, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, Mississippi State, Kansas State, Duke, Central Florida, Cincinnati, Missouri, Tulane, then a whole bunch of other small schools that don't matter. Bottom line is everybody wanted Deuce Geralds. Awesome player. Explosive, dynamic, disruptive player on the interior of the defensive line. So, everybody wanted him. LSU got him. And this is so significant for the future of the defensive line. As a matter of fact, after Geralds committed, Steve Wiltfong, National Recruiting Director for On3, said point blank, this is how he characterized this LSU defensive line recruiting class right now.
Well, you look at the strength of LSU's class right now. It is on the defensive line. 4 top 100 players committed to the Tigers this cycle. Deuce Geralds, the latest, he joins #1 jumbo athlete Lamar Brown. And you look at the guys that they have in the fold. Richard Anderson rivals #2 defensive lineman Trenton Henderson, one of the most coveted edge rushers in the country. They landed Darius McKinley yesterday to the fold, and DeAnthony Lafayette recently committed. This is the top defensive line class in the country. It's championship caliber.
And it's not particularly close. Consider this. The 2 edge players you have committed. 5-star Lamar Brown, the #1 edge in the country. 5-star Trenton Henderson, the number 36 overall prospect in the country. On the interior now, you have Richard Anderson, the number 49 overall prospect in the country, the #2 interior defensive lineman. And Deuce Geralds, the number 93 overall prospect, the number 8 interior defensive lineman. And you also have DeAnthony Lafayette and Darius McKinley. Like, this is how it's supposed to look. Do you realize LSU has not had a first-team All-American on the defensive line since Sam Montgomery in 2011? LSU has not had a first-team All-American defensive tackle since Drake Nevis in 2010. Y'all, LSU built its great defenses around Shad Lavallee and Kyle Williams and Marcus Spears and the late Marquise Hill and Claude Roten and Drake Nevis and Michael Brockers and Benny Logan and Sam Montgomery and Barkevius Mingo and the defensive line. It was DBU was all the rage, but they built it through the defensive line. It has been a decade and a half since LSU's had a first-team All-American on the defensive line. Now, look at what next year is going to look like. I mean, we've already talked about this year with all the transfers they've added, in addition to Dominic McKinley a year older, Ahmad Bro a year older, Jacobian Guillory coming back, bringing in Bernard Gooden, Peyton, Pyburn, Butler, Relaford. They got tons of dudes. They're going to lose a bunch of them after this year. But now you look at next year with Dominic McKinley, former 5-star, Ahmad Bro going into his junior year next year. This class of 5-stars, Damian Shanklin, who you've got this year, who looks freaking like an Adonis, 6'5", 260 on the edge. All the interior players, Buddy Mathis, Brandon Brown, Zion Williams, like this class. Sadir Mitchell should be back again next year. It's how it's supposed to look. So, how did they pull this off with Geralds? I mentioned it was a 3-pronged approach. Number 1, first and foremost, you have to be able to set the hook with the player and have that emotional connection. That was an easy one here. Gerald's father is from Baton Rouge, went to Scotlandville. He was recruited by Coach O and Frank Wilson to Ole Miss, where he went and played. He was on those 2 Cotton Bowl teams under Houston Nutt. And Deuce Geralds spent part of his childhood in Baton Rouge, talked after his commitment about actually playing 6U ball with Richard Anderson out of New Orleans. So that was there. He called LSU his dream school from the time he was a kid. So that part was there and was obvious. So that check, right? Frank Wilson's recruiting you. It's a chance to go play for in your hometown. Check. That's all there. The second part of this is the football component had to make sense. And I know I've explained this before, but it bears repeating what Kyle Williams is looking for at defensive tackle. And it's different than Bo Davis. And someone asked, hey, if Bo Davis was still the defensive line coach, would they have gotten Geralds? And I don't know. But the best example that I have given and will continue to give is look at the transfers on the defensive line that you got under Bo Davis and under Kyle Williams. Bo Davis brought Sadir Mitchell here, 6'5", 260. Kyle Williams wanted Bernard Gooden, 6'1", 268. That's the difference. Bo Davis wanted gigantic, space-eating humans. Kyle Williams wants smaller, faster, powerful, explosive dudes that can get upfield and make plays. Deuce Geralds fits the mold of what Kyle Williams wants. He looks almost exactly like Bernard Gooden, the South Florida transfer, who's been unblockable in this camp so far. So that part is check. You check the emotional attachment. You check the football box as well. Then it's got to be the money. And what I was told, some conversations I had, is that Oregon's offer was more than LSU's. But there's an important component, and this is where Austin Thomas and his staff, they are so important in this process. They were able to explain and do a cost-benefit analysis with the Geralds family to make this make sense. Where, yes, maybe Oregon, their top-line number is more. And LSU, by the way, was competitive. Like, LSU can compete with Oregon. Not for 25 prospects in a class. But if they want to go toe-to-toe on 2 to 3 guys that they've identified, Lamar Brown, Deuce Geralds, there's the 2 or 3 guys in the class where you feel like you got to go toe-to-toe with that. They can make it work. You're not going to be able to do it for 25 guys. But when you handpick the ones that you are prioritized, you can make it work financially. But think of it this way. Gerald's family lives in Oregon or in Georgia. What's it going to cost to take 7 plane trips a year or 8 plane trips from Atlanta to Eugene, Oregon? To fly across the country, to stay in hotels, the food, all that sort of the disruption, leaving work, taking off. When you put that down on a spreadsheet, and then you realize if your son's playing at LSU, where, by the way, you have family in Baton Rouge still, and you can drive to any game in the Southeastern Conference, it starts to make more sense. Because even if Oregon's offering a slightly higher top-line number, the net is going to be what and what because of all you're going to have to spend to travel to watch him play. So much of this is just the coordinated recruiting effort among the on-field staff, the recruiting staff, and the quote-unquote front office now, putting together a comprehensive plan to show the player and the player's family how and why it makes the most sense. And that's how they were able to land Deuce Geralds. And this is a major coup because beginning of last week, everybody thought he was picking Oregon. And LSU stayed on it. They made the right pitch, and they landed him. Now, they got him in December. He's got to sign, make it official, show up on campus, and stay for 3 or 4 years and be an impactful guy. But if he does, you can start to see how they piece together this defensive front to look like how it used to look when LSU was churning out dominant defenses year after year after year. And hopefully Deuce Geralds will be a big part of the next one. All right, it's After Further Review. We are brought to you by our friends at Our Lady of the Lake, championship health partner of LSU Athletics, but not just championship health partner serving the student athletes. Yes, when you go out to LSU, the physicians, the trainers, those are Our Lady of the Lake physicians taking care of the LSU football players, but also the LSU students, but also everyday champions like you and me. Whenever we're talking about healthcare, there's 2 things we want. We want access and we want convenience. You want to be able to get in and see your doctor when you want to get in and see your doctor. Our Lady of the Lake, part of the Franciscan Missionaries of Our Lady Health System, a multi-state health system with hospitals and clinics all over. They provide that access and that convenience. And, of course, world-class care. Part of the championship health partner of LSU Athletics. It's Our Lady of the Lake. You can learn more at ololrmc.com/LSU, Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center, ololrmc.com/LSU. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU, together we roar. Okay, y'all, it is After Further Review. Speaking of the Lake, EJ Kuiper, Ryan Cross from the Lake, they'll be in studio with us in 45 minutes talking about the LSU, the new basketball arena project, cool NIL thing they have going on as well. We'll talk about all that coming up here in about 45 minutes. Let me knock out a break. We'll switch from the purple and gold to the black and gold. When we come back, Ross Jackson will join us, give us a little update. Saints were off today, but what we saw over the weekend, what we should look forward to this week with the Saints heading out to L.A. for their joint practices with the Chargers. We'll get to that next on AFR.
AFR.
The Watermark downtown Baton Rouge is celebrating its centennial, the building, I should say. I've told you before, it opened as the original Louisiana National Bank. It was the original high-rise building in downtown Baton Rouge. And now it's been redeveloped into Watermark Baton Rouge, which is the premier luxury hotel in Baton Rouge. If you've never been, I say it all the time, just find an excuse to go experience this venue. Maybe it's dinner or Sunday brunch at the Gregory. Maybe you're walking downtown, have a sandwich at Milford's on 3rd. Maybe just pop on into the lobby and have a glass of wine or a cocktail at the lobby bar. Maybe you're having an event, and it's a great excuse to have a company board meeting. The bank vaults down below the building, or they've converted them into meeting space and private dining. Or you're looking for a place to stay for a little staycation or football weekend. It's Watermark Baton Rouge.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. And we do shutters too.
No, we just want them to just play ball. That'll be, really the remainder of preseason. We'll obviously roadmap those games pretty good, but this was just purely call it and react.
126 play scrimmage. A 126 play scrimmage, none of it scripted. Kellen Moore off the cuff. Ross Jackson of LouisianaSports.net, Locked On Saints podcast. He was there, God bless him, charting every single rep. He's here now. Hey, man, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. What's crazy is that 126 plays doesn't even include, the penalties, the field goals, the things that didn't get counted in the offensive play side. So there was even more. It's crazy. It was a busy day.
How many sheets of paper to chart all 126 plays?
I think I lost count at there were 18 series. Some series were 3 and out, so it was easy to get them in there. So I was probably around 8 or 9
God bless.
Sheets of paper. Not too bad.
You're out there doing the Lord's work, and we appreciate it. So Kellen Moore said it. It's the longest scrimmage that he or anyone had been associated with. What prompted that on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, that was something that Kellen just wanted to be able to do. He wanted to get away from the scripted play side to where, it's not necessarily that the offense knows what the defense is doing and the defense knows what the offense is doing in those situations, but, you get those plays as a player the night before, and then you kind of get the opportunity to get familiar with them, and then you show up the next morning, and then you're running those plays. And so he wanted to kind of take that level of preparedness out, which doesn't really exist in the game situation. Sure, you can you can study your playbook all you want the night before a game, but when you show up, you don't know what's coming at you, when, and what situations you're going to be facing, and all these other things. So this gave them, over the course of 18 different drives, to be able to operate with different procedures, operate under different scenarios, different situations, different circumstances, and call plays that mesh and mold and change and ebb and flow the way that an NFL game would, and both sides of the football having to respond to that. There were about 89 passes thrown that were counted, and as a part of that, you saw a lot of the defense having to adjust to a pretty heavy passing day. Didn't see a lot of the run game mixed in, but certainly some of it. So I think all of it was just about getting these players away from pre-scripted preparedness and into a different type of preparedness to be ready to go kind of at a whim's notice based on what plays you were going to get, what team was going to face which team, all of that within this scrimmage environment.
Ross, I'm glad you brought up the run game, even though it wasn't really featured on Sunday. We know Kamara's going to be RB1. I know you've written about this at LouisianaSports.net, but does there seem to be any separation at all yet, or pecking order for RB2?
Yeah, I would say that there's kind of tiers. And so obviously Alvin Kamara is in a tier of his own. But then you look at some of the other guys that have gotten sort of first and second team reps. That group includes guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Devin Neal, the rookie third-year running back Kendrick Miller that's really looking to bounce back this season. And then a little bit of Cam Akers kind of mixed in all of that too. And then we've seen kind of Marcus Yarns and Bayless Jones Jr. kind of hover in the second and third team reps, with Marcus Yarns mostly in the third team reps. And so I think you can kind of look at 3 distinct tiers in terms of Alvin Kamara, the guys that are seeing first and second, and then the guys that are mostly involved in second and third teams. And that gives you an idea of maybe where things sit right now. But if you were to ask me who right now I think is running back 2, I don't know that I can answer that just yet, because we haven't seen enough of the run game throughout training camp. A lot of the padded practices have lent themselves towards the passing game, 2-minute drives, or rather 2-minute drills at the end of halves, 2-minute drills at the end of games. The first day of padded practices, we saw quarterback run game installs, all that. So I'm really excited to kind of really get to sink my teeth into the run game a little bit more of what this will look like for this team once we get to the preseason, and they've got to be able to kind of show that on the field in LA. And so I think that's when we're going to learn a lot more about this run game.
Okay, as they head into the first preseason week here, they'll play the Chargers on Sunday. It's in an off day here on Monday after a 126-play scrimmage. It's a good time to just sort of pause, pull back, and assess the body of work so far at quarterback. 10,000-foot view, tell us what you see so far.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the three quarterbacks that are kind of in this conversation, we know that there's two front runners. It's Spencer Rattler and it's Tyler Shuck. And so when it comes down to the two of those guys, I think that what we've seen from Spencer Rattler is a much more decisive Rattler than we saw last season. That makes sense, going from a rookie year, having seen 6 starts now, having seen some NFL action and adjusted to the speed. And we've also seen a Rattler that's a little bit more comfortable utilizing his legs in a way that he couldn't or didn't last year. When we spoke with him one-on-one over at LouisianaSports.net last year after his first 3 starts, when he talked about coming back after the offseason, he talked about coming back as a brand new player and that fans were going to see something entirely different because he wanted to be able to utilize his legs a little bit more and trust sort of that natural athleticism that he has. He wanted to focus on kind of rebuilding, the lower body and building speed and all these other things. So I think you're seeing all of those elements kind of come to fruition for him so far throughout training camp. Tyler Shuck, what you're seeing is a guy that can make every single throw on the field, take some incredible arm angles, has some athleticism in his game as well, but hasn't really been aggressive until maybe the last couple of practices. So as that aggression turns into, bigger plays being made and things like that, then I think you can see him start to close the gap that currently exists between him and Spencer Rattler. But I would say right now that we're just looking at them from a general perspective so far, Spencer Rattler comfortably ahead right now in that quarterback battle. And a lot of it has to do with his ability to operate and his ability to kind of make decisions quickly and take some risks in the process.
Do we know, Ross, how Kellen Moore is going to handle the reps for the preseason games for the quarterbacks?
Not just yet. It's something that's going to definitely come up tomorrow, and then we're probably going to bug Kellen each and every day. He's going to feel like the Super Bowl again when I was following him around all over New Orleans. And so I'm sure we'll bug him about it all throughout the week, next week in Orange County. But I'm curious about that too. Is he going to throttle this down to just 2 quarterbacks, give one a half? Are we really going to see 3 quarterbacks involved? And, obviously there are some other things that could play into that decision, but we don't know just yet, but I think that we're going to be pestering him about that here this week.
Yeah. Ross Jackson is with us. He's on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Give him a follow. You can read him at LouisianaSports.net. You can listen or watch him at Locked On Saints. We've talked so much about the quarterbacks, Ross. I think we're all guilty maybe of not talking enough about who's actually going to catch the ball. We know Olave and Shaheed are there. Is anybody else making a significant impact so far?
I know T-Bob is, off in Chicago having a good time now, but he would be very happy to hear that it's Mason Tipton.
I am not isn't this the problem though, Ross? Like if you keep, not you, but you keep trying to sell me every year in camp on Mason Tipton, and every year the season comes and he's nowhere to be seen. Like, isn't that a problem?
I think it becomes a problem if every year it gets the regular season and he's nowhere to be seen. I think that that's true. Like if that continues to happen, then, we get back to the wide receiver who shall not be named kind of territory. And so I think that for New Orleans, they would certainly like to avoid that for sure. But I will say Mason Tipton is standing out each and every practice so far. Last year, he was standing out early, but then he had that injury and that kind of set him back a little bit from getting comfortable with the offense, which was, a very kind of run-heavy offense. I think this one will be too, but is going to ask a little bit more of its wideouts. And I also think, too, that one of the reasons why we're seeing Mason Tipton stand out so much is because we haven't seen Brandon Cooks overly involved. And I think that's by design. Brandon Cooks, Demario Davis, and Cam Jordan are all guys that have kind of been paced into the installation and throughout practice, but not overly utilized or overly featured in practices. And I think that's because they know what these guys are going to do, and they know that those guys know what it is that they need to do as the veterans of the roster. And so I do think that there is a truth to the matter, too, that when you get into the regular season, you'll see Brandon Cooks a little bit more than you're hearing about him in training camp, and that's probably going to impact the opportunity and ability for a guy like Mason Tipton to really cash in on that momentum that he's building here in training camp.
All right. So much focus on the offense naturally with the quarterbacks and offensive-minded coach, all that stuff. It is Brandon Staley installing a new defense. Anything that is maybe the biggest storyline on the defensive side so far, good or bad?
Yeah, I think over on the defensive side, a good thing that I would highlight is I think the defensive side has a lot more talented young depth than the offensive side of the football has. And so that's good for this defense. I think that when you look at, the top of that edge rusher room, Chase Young, Carl Granderson, it's easy to kind of see guys that stand out there. They always kind of stand out. They look different than the rest of the players around them, especially now as stand-up edge rushers. But then you look at some of these deeper guys, Yasheen Davis, who you had on the show after he was signed as an undrafted free agent at Wake Forest. He has flashed. Fadil Diggs, the rookie out of Syracuse, previously Texas A&M. He's flashed. Chris Rumpf, the guy that got brought in and has been somebody that, was familiar with Brandon Staley. He's flashed as well. And so now you're just looking for them to put together more consistency and in particular in in-game situations. The thing that's become sort of the concern is where you're seeing some incumbent players not really feel like they're settling into the new system. Isaiah Foskey, for instance, is a guy that we thought this might be, like if it was going to work for him, that this would be the system in which it worked. It's so similar to what he did at Notre Dame in that Viper role where he was more of a stand-up pass rusher hybrid linebacker. And he simply hasn't really shown up very much so far or shown out very much so far. And so I think that he's got all the talent. It's just for whatever reason, it's not showing on the field just yet. And so I think that along with the depth at wide receiver, which we already discussed, and I would say too, a little bit of the depth on the offensive line, because you see a lot of pressure in those second and third teams. And we're seeing errant snaps for those centers behind Eric McCoy. I think those are the places that have been most concerning so far.
Blake Grupe's locked down the kicking job.
Oh, my goodness, has he ever? He's, I think, 26 of 27 so far. That includes makes from 54, 59, 53, 51. I mean, this guy has been just automatic here so far throughout camp. Remember, we talked about how much of a competition we would see with the legs, kicker and punter in special teams. This has never felt like a competition when it comes to Blake Grupe and Charlie Smith. And it's not all about, the kicks that Charlie Smith has missed, which have been a lot of kicks in between the 40 to 50-yard range. It has just been how ridiculously good and consistent Blake Grupe has been. He looks like he's in for a big year. And look, with young quarterbacks and an offensive system that's being installed and trying to learn all of this, the kicker might be a big part of what puts points on the board. And so a guy like Blake Grupe going out there and building this momentum in training camp should be able to translate well going into the regular season. And I will say that almost all of his kicks, if not all of them actually, I'll say all but one day of his kicks have been outdoors, not in the indoor facility. Not that, we've provided much snow here in New Orleans or anything that's been, ridiculously hard for him to deal with or to manage inclement weather-wise. But just something of note that a lot of this has been against taking into account winds, taking into account sort of the natural elements in a way that last year we saw a lot of his kicks indoors.
LouisianaSports.net and Locked on Saints. He's Ross Jackson. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, bud. You take care. Stay safe. Thanks for having me on. Talk to you soon.
Always. We're brought to you by Evermore, EVAMOR, Evermore.com, Evermore.com. Drink Evermore. I was drinking Evermore by the pool yesterday. It's hot outside. Y'all make sure you stay hydrated when you're going to be walking down the bottled water aisle, be it at the gas station, the grocery store, wherever you are. Don't grab that thing that you're used to grabbing. I would actually encourage you to grab it and read the label. Look at where it says what's added or taken away, filtered out of that water. With Evermore, natural artesian water out of an artesian well in the North Shore Lake Pontchartrain right there in Covington. Nothing added, nothing taken away, a natural product from that artesian well right into the bottle. Better form of hydration, healthier option for your family. If you're a high-performance athlete, you need better hydration, you need Evermore. EVAMOR, Evermore.com, Evermore.com. Available at great local retailers and online at Evermore.com. Okay, y'all, it is After Further Review. We are thrilled to have you hanging out with us here on this Monday, presented by Relief Windows. We're going to knock out a quick break. When we come back, we'll circle back to Brian Kelly, some of his comments after practice on Monday, and also the preseason coaches' top 25 is out. I'll react to that next on AFR.
AFR.
When it's 110 degrees outside and your AC goes out, you don't have an option. You got to get it fixed. It's literally dangerous to be stuck in a home without central air when we get to those types of dangerous temperatures. It's why you can rely on River City's 1 Hour Air. Esther Pens sent this 5-star review. I love it. Kevin, the technician. Kevin is pretty dope. He was friendly, professional, quick, and very knowledgeable. He was patient in answering questions and made us feel confident in his ability to explain the issue as well as resolve it. Definitely will use him again and recommend him to others. Kevin, of course, is dope. So is River City's 1 Hour Air. Look for the big yellow vans and trucks with the giant clock on the side. I encourage you, go read the Google reviews. You'll see why they have double the amount of 5-star reviews of the next closest competitor, because they're always on time, or you don't pay a dime. Nights, holidays, and weekends, they'll always come out. 752-0001. 752-0001.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. And oh, we do shutters too.
Coach's preseason top 25 is out for college football. Texas, preseason number 1 with 28 first-place votes, followed by the defending champ Buckeyes with 20 votes. Penn State, third, with 14 first-place votes, followed by Georgia, 3 first-place votes. Notre Dame, preseason number 5. Clemson, LSU season-opening opponent, preseason number 6 with 2 first-place votes, actually. And then Oregon 7, Alabama 8, LSU 9, Miami 10. That rounds out the preseason top 10 in the coaches poll. A couple of things here that I do find interesting as we look at that preseason top 10. I am skeptical on Texas. I get it. They got a ton of talent. And I did pick them to make the SEC championship game, in large part because of the talent they have and the schedule they play. So therein, maybe it does make sense. But like what I say when I'm picking a preseason, it's who has the fewest questions against the most manageable schedule. The manageable schedule piece is there for Texas, except for the fact that they do go to Georgia. The questions, though, are all over. And, of course, they start with Arch Manning at quarterback. And they've got guys with high star ratings and 5 stars and all that sort of stuff. There's just a bunch of questions everywhere. And I can say the same about Ohio State. You have 14 players drafted. I mean, you just lose everything all over both sides of the ball. You lose your quarterback. You lose your top 2 running backs. You lose a couple of starting offensive linemen. You're all everything. Jack Sawyer on defense. It's hard to lose. I mean, look at LSU in 2019 to 2020. The expectation of being there, then coupled with losing all of that talent year over year, just a very difficult thing to overcome. I just look up and down that top 10, and so someone's got to maintain that top spot. But I just go Arch Manning at Texas, Julian Saint at Ohio State, Drew Aller at Penn State. That's your top 3. Georgia obviously has a quarterback question. Notre Dame's got a new quarterback. Clemson has an incumbent at 6. Oregon's got a new quarterback at 7. And Dante Moore, who's a former 5-star. Bama's got a new starting quarterback. I mean, it's it's Penn State, Clemson, and LSU in the top 10 that return starting quarterbacks. And I guess I just lean so heavily there that I grant it more weight. But if you're looking at the rest of the top 25, in particular the SEC, which I think the coaches actually got it more right than a lot of the pollsters and some of the preseason magazines. South Carolina's at 13. I still think that's probably a little over their skis. Ole Miss at 15. Florida's down at 17. Tennessee 18. I mean, you can't lose Nico and not miss a beat. Texas A&M at 21. So I think that's probably a little more appropriate than a lot of what we saw where some of the preseason polls had Florida, South Carolina, Texas A&M in the top 10. The coaches generally know better what they're looking at. And so this feels a little more appropriate with Tennessee down at 18, Texas A&M at 21, Florida at 17. But just a starting point. If I had my druthers, there wouldn't be polls until October. You'd play a month of football and then release a poll, but it's about conversation, and so that's where we are. And it's a starting point, and that's the starting point. So when LSU takes on Clemson, it will be number 6 against number 9. You'll have a top 10 matchup with LSU and Clemson in Clemson, South Carolina, in 26 days from right now. All right, it's After Further Review. We're glad you're with us. We're brought to you by South Point Volkswagen and SouthPointVW.com. Took my Volkswagen Atlas Crossport out to practice today. Took my Volkswagen Atlas Crossport to Houston last Monday when I was there and back on Monday, Tuesday. Eric and I would take her Volkswagen Atlas to the beach every summer when we go. The bottom line is when we're on the road, be it driving around town with Drew in his car seat or family trip to the beach or wherever we may be, We have tremendous peace of mind knowing we're driving one of the safest vehicles on the road. We also get all the great gas mileage, the high performance, and great ways to save at South Point Volkswagen as well. 3.9% APR right now in the 2025 Cross Sport. They've got a current owner bonus. If you currently own a Volkswagen, get $1,500 for your loyalty right now at South Point Volkswagen. Airline just north of Highland or southpointvw.com. South Point Volkswagen. What's your direction? In 18 minutes from right now, EJ Kuiper and Ryan Cross from FMOL Health System, of course, of which Our Lady of the Lake is part of. I should say. They'll be in our studio. We'll talk about some cool NIL stuff they're doing, but also the future LSU basketball arena project. As we learned, the news leaked a couple of weeks back that Our Lady of the Lake is pursuing the naming rights of the new arena. So we'll talk a little bit about that with the president of FMOL in our studio in 18 minutes from right now. Brian Kelly met with reporters, and he was asked about the sort of intensity on the offensive line and defensive line so far this early in fall camp.
I think intensity is, first of all, a mindset, and having the right guys that bring that intensity certainly helps. Then how do you create that? Look at the offensive line. You got 5 guys competing for spots. So there is that piece where it brings out an intensity. So, when you're stirring it, right, you're stirring the drink and you put all the ingredients in there, sometimes you really got to work hard at getting that intensity, and sometimes you just add water. This group is much more about just adding water. They have those traits, and they have that situation where there's so much competition. We haven't had that competition, quite frankly. They're the starter. It's hard to bring that intensity every day. So I would add those factors into why what you're seeing is actual and true.
The fascinating part about Brian Kelly kind of laughing there and saying, we haven't had that competition, is not wrong. Because when you and by the way, not because of a negative situation, it's because you've had starters embedded. You had Will Campbell and Emory Jones embedded for 3 years. You had Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier embedded for 3 years. Obviously this past year, DJ Chester took over at center, but before that, you had Charles Turner for 2 years embedded there. You didn't have competition because you had incumbents. Well, now the whole thing is competition. Nobody is in their spot. The one thing he said point blank, can you play that one, Muse? It's number 12. The one thing, as he was going through, the one thing that's point blank done is Braylon Moore's your starting center.
Paul, DJ, Colin Eccles, and Thompson. So those 4 guys, 1A, 1B right now. They're just rolling in and out as we've kind of established Braylon Moore as the center. And so those 4 guys are working, and DJ would be our number 2 center. So it's a 4-man rotation right now with those guys.
So again, your center is set with Braylon Moore, and right now your tackles are set with Tyree Adams and Weston Davis. Now, if something happened and you had to shift, then Josh Thompson could play tackle. It means someone maybe like Cohen Eccles would move into that guard spot. But you basically have 4 guys vying for 2 spots right now. The 3 things are known. Braylon Moore's your center, Tyree Adams left tackle, Weston Davis right tackle. Those are seemingly set right now. The competition, the rotation, is the 4 guys for 2 spots at guard. It's Josh Thompson, DJ Chester right now running with the ones, and they're being backed up by Cohen Eccles and Paul Mabenga, who started 5 games a year ago. Out of those 4 guys, you're going to find 2 starters. And that's where the competition is. And they are rotating them, and they're getting them reps. But I'm going to say it again. If you missed our practice report at the beginning of the show today, my biggest takeaway on the line is when they go one-on-one, the offensive line more than holds their own in the pass rush drills against the defensive line. Meaning those guys are plenty talented enough to do the job. It's not like you're putting someone out there who is physically incapable or overmatched. They all win reps. They're all very capable. The issue is when they go team, the defensive front is overwhelming them at times. And I think that's 5 learning to play as one. 5 guys that have never played together learning to play as one. And so you've got a month. You've got a month worth of practices in fall camp and getting ready for Clemson. It's why it's spilled milk at this point, but I would love it if you had a week 0 game. I would love it if you had Southeastern week 1 and then went to Clemson. So they'd at least have The example is, think back to Florida State in the Dome, Brian Kelly's first game, when Garrett Dellinger was starting that game at center, and it was a disaster. How great would it have been if you could have had that quote-unquote disaster at home against Southern and then gone and played Florida State with your now settled offensive line? Again, it's crying over spilled milk at this point because there's nothing you do. You get the game scheduled August 30th. You got to do your best. It's just in 3 years, they've come out of camp and not known necessarily in certain spots who their best guys were in certain spots. There's much more urgency to make sure you have that because as tough as playing Florida State was or Southern Cal and Vegas, this is just a different animal altogether. So you got to figure it out. And you've got to get those guys reps, as many reps as you can together. It's going to be what the next 3 weeks is largely about for those offensive linemen. All right, it's after further review. We'll knock out a quick break, come back. Muse will do Tigers and the Pros to wrap up hour number 2. Don't you move on AFR.
After further review.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. Do what injured people in our state have done for 3 decades. Get Gordon and get it done. It's Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. You know, we talk so often about all the different ways that Gordon positively impacts our community, right? You go to GordonGives.com. Actually, if you go to the website, getgordon.com, there's a Gordon Gives tab right there. If you want to see the many different ways that Gordon impacts the community, it's right there for you. The laptop giveaway, the bicycle giveaway around Christmas. If maybe you want to request a sponsorship, you could do it right there. And so many other ways as well, like through the G team and the NIL efforts and endeavors that Gordon and his team has put forward. It's all about giving back to our community, the communities that have given Gordon and his family so much. He says it all the time. So if you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. Do what injured people in our state have done for 3 decades. Go to getgordon.com. Get Gordon and get it done.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and oh, we do shutters too.
Wrapping up hour number 2. Glad you're hanging out with us here. We always appreciate our friends at Relief Windows and reliefwindows.com. The Odd Father is back. How about it? He's back from Del Mar.
Oh, gosh. Proceed with caution.
Can't wait to get honor locks. They're already posted over at louisianasports.net if you want them. We give the hesitancy because a few years ago, man, Jimmy was just on a Major League Baseball heater.
Yeah.
I mean, like, couldn't be stopped.
Which is difficult with baseball, man. It's a very hard sport to bet.
Goes to Del Mar, bets on the ponies for a couple of weeks, comes back and could not pick if he had the sports almanac from Back to the Future, he still couldn't pick a winner after that. So I don't know, man. Proceed with when Otter's back from Del Mar, proceed with caution. But Jimmy's back. We're glad he is back, and we'll have Otter Locks coming up next hour. All right, Muso, Tigers and the Pros.
Tigers in the Pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
Earlier on Monday, Paul Skeens was named National League Pitcher of the Month for July because, of course, he was. He went 2-1 with a 0.67 ERA. Struck out 36 in 27 innings pitched. And, oh, by the way, started his 2nd consecutive All-Star game in the month of July. It was a really, really good one. See if you can repeat it in August. Couple of rehab assignments in minor league baseball to get you caught up on. Dylan Cruz had a great day on Sunday. 2 out of 4. He had a 3-run homer and a double in that game. So far on the rehab assignment, he's hitting .231. We'll see how much longer the Nationals keep him down there. Aaron Nola made his first rehab start. That was back on Friday night. We gave you a preview. He ended up going 3 shutout, punched out 3 as well. Good pitch count. His next rehab start is scheduled for Wednesday. Of course, everything has to go according to plan, and hopefully he'll be there. Talked about Hunter Ferdusha being traded last week at the deadline. He was facing his former team. The Dodgers went 1 for 4 on Sunday in that ball game. Cole Henry back to his ways. Shutout inning of relief for the Nationals on Sunday. And then finally, Anissa Morrow for the Connecticut Sun. 16 points, 9 boards. The 16 points, second most on her team. Really, really solid game in a starting role. That's Tigers and the Pros.
Nice the Beast. Presented by Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com, lmfj.com. Gents, if you're thinking of popping the question, Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. You can go to the website. You can schedule a consultation with one of their associates. no matter any of the 9 locations, 2 in Baton Rouge, Corporate Boulevard, Mall of Louisiana, New Orleans, Lafayette, Shreveport. Bottom line is, when you're buying a diamond, it is a forever expression of your love. You want her to be thrilled. They want her to be thrilled. So if you want to try on and look at 1,000 rings, look at 1,000 rings. They're never going to pressure you into buying something. They want you to be thrilled. This is something that in hopes would pass down through generations of your family. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Learn more online at lmfj.com, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Thrill her with a gift in the red box from Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Yeah, I was looking at a video of Aaron Nola's rehab start. It's weird. It's his first minor league outing since 2017. Nola's out here just dealing against minor league kids. It's just so unfair. All right, hour number 3 coming up right after SportsCenter.
After further review.
You know, if you're hitting the road one more time before summer ends and the kiddos go back to school, make sure you bring your vehicle to Shawbills. ShawBillsTire.com. That's where you can go schedule your service. ShawBillsTire.com. With locations all over South Louisiana. You know, they opened up their doors in 1968 when they did. Mr. Charlie created what he called the Charlie's Dozen and also the Customer Bill of Rights. Think about this. This is a tire shop, an auto service company that has a Customer Bill of Rights. It's things that they believe you, as a customer, are entitled to when you walk through the door. You don't hear much of that anymore. But it's one of the reasons that why, since 1968, Shawbills continues to thrive. Because more than 50 years ago, Mr. Charlie said, you know, we're going to repair people's tires for free because it's just the right thing to do. And they still do it today. And as a result, you'll buy your tires there. They'll keep you coming back year after year after year. Experience the Shawbills difference. ShawBillsTire.com. Shawbills, we keep you rolling.